Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, the source material for the classic film Field of Dreams starring Kevin Costner and James Earl Jones. That's right. Did you know that Field of Dreams was based on a book? Because I didn't for the longest time. But I came across this book one day in the bargain section of a bookstore, as the sticker on its cover might evince. And I thought to myself, I'll read that. And having done so now, I have to say it's a pretty good book. Although I will say up front that this is an instance where the film, I would say, is actually significantly better. But anyway, so what is the story of Shoeless Joe? Well, if you have seen Field of Dreams, the movie is actually pretty true to the book. Shoeless Joe tells the story of Ray Kinsella, an Iowa farmer who oddly shares the surname of the book's author, who is in debt up to his eyeballs. But one day, while in his cornfield, he hears a mysterious voice instructing him to build a baseball field, saying that if you build it, he will come. The kind of iconic line there. And also in the book, it is not a whispery voice, which I guess in the movie is meant to be like God or something. In the book, it is the voice of a baseball ballpark announcer, which I think that was a good choice to change that for the film. Anyway, so despite being in debt up to his eyeballs, Ray builds a baseball field in the middle of his cornfield, and soon enough, ghostly ball players begin to appear, including the titular Shoeless Joe Jackson, and they begin to play phantom baseball games on this field. But then one day, Ray receives new instructions from this mysterious voice, instructing him to find the reclusive author J.D. Salinger. And this is a major change which was made for the film. Understandably so, if you are at all familiar with J.D. Salinger. The author which the main character sets out to find in the film is a fictitious author, I believe, named Terrence Mann, the character played by James Earl Jones. Understandable change once again, if you are familiar at all with the personality of J.D. Salinger. But anyway, so Ray sets out across country to go find the reclusive J.D. Salinger, and they go to a baseball game where they receive further instructions to go find a very not well-known baseball player named Moonlight Graham, who I did not know was actually a real person. Anyway, so they go find him, and then they go back to Iowa, where Ray's long lost twin brother has shown up, and that is a change that was made in an adaptation, because that subplot is totally excised from the film. And again, I think that was actually a pretty good choice, honestly, because it doesn't really feel like that serves much purpose in this book. But anyway, so the Ray's creditors are closing in to seize the farm. But then J.D. Salinger is invited by the ghostly ball players to accompany them to the great beyond through the cornfield. And then after that, as just like the film's ending, the book ends with a long line of cars congregating on the farm, that have been drawn to the farm to see this ball field, and they will presumably be paying money to do so. So it's implied Ray will keep the farm due to this new stream of revenue from admissions to the ghostly phantom ballpark. That's the story of Shoeless Joe. And I gotta say, having seen Field of Dreams so many times, I was kind of inured to the fact that this is a weird ass story. I mean, you don't really think about it that much when you're watching the film, and that's really a testament to the film, I would say. But when I was reading this book, I was like, this is a bonkers book. It really is. You've got baseball ghosts, time travel, J.D. Salinger thrown in there. Again, it's just such a weird story. It really is. But as I said, it's a pretty good one, actually. It's a pretty good book, I have to say. But again, the film is better. So let's just, talk about the technical qualities of this book. Let's start with the writing. This is a pretty well written book. I am pretty much totally unfamiliar with the author, W.P. Kinsella. I've never read anything else by him. This is by a large margin, I think, his most well known book. But he could write. There are some pretty good turns of phrase in here. There are some pretty good similes that he makes in this. He's very prone to simile in this, and some of them are kind of striking. Some of them are kind of memorable. But all in all, it's a pretty strongly written book. I didn't really have anything to complain about with the writing. On to the characters. The characters in the book I found somewhat lacking, and this is a major reason why I think that the movie is substantially better than its source material. Because the characters in the book, I just didn't find all that remarkable. The book is narrated in the first person by Ray, the main character, and I just found him kind of a dull character. He didn't have much personality. It seemed like to me his entire personality revolved around baseball, and that's something I gotta say right here. If you're not into baseball, then and you want to read this book, then you better prepare yourself for extended disquisitions on baseball. I mean, I'm not really much of a sports fan myself, but I mean, I like baseball. It's a fine sport. I played some ball with the boys back in school, but that's about the extent of my experience with the sport. But I like baseball, so I mean, I wasn't totally off put by the the kind of fixation, the obsession with baseball that this book manifests. But if you're not into baseball, like, be prepared. This book is very, very, very obsessed with baseball, and you're going to get a lot of baseball through this book. But other than the fixation on baseball, I didn't really find Ray to be that interesting of a character, and the other characters aren't really all that interesting. I guess J.D. Salinger would be the most memorable character for me, even though I get the distinct impression that the fictitious depiction of J.D. Salinger in this book is very far removed in personality, probably from the real life J.D. Salinger. And again, that's totally understandable because J.D. Salinger was a reclusive prick, kind of. I get the impression. But he's portrayed in a very sympathetic and more or less positive light in this book, which is probably the only reason why W.P. Kinsella was not sued into oblivion by J.D. Salinger's wolf pack of lawyers that he was very wont to bring out at times. But the characters they're not that memorable, honestly. Annie, Ray's wife, is kind of just this manic pixie dream girl character, whereas her character in the film is like one of the most memorable parts of the movie with the you want to step outside, you Nazi cow, like that scene. That very memorable scene there. Not so much in the book. The characters just are kind of lacking, I thought, in this book. They're kind of flat. So I would knock it for the characters, and again, that's a major reason why the movie is better, in my opinion. But as for the story, once again, this is really just kind of a weird story. And if you've only seen the film, you might, again, like I was, be kind of inured to that fact. But this is an absolutely bonkers book. It really is. Again, you've got just like extended disquisitions on baseball, just a real fixation on this sport. And the baseball in the book is portrayed not just as a sport; it's portrayed as some kind of like almost like religious activity. The book is kind of about, and you get this definitely in the speech in the film that James Earl Jones gives about how baseball is the one constant throughout all the years. The book is treating baseball as like this mythic thing, like America's national myth kind of, it's this mythic thing that survives throughout all the ages. So it's more about Americana, I suppose, than just strictly baseball in like the most mundane sense of that word. But beyond that, you've also got the ghosts, you've got a brief instance of time travel, and you have J.D. Salinger thrown in here for good measure. This is a truly bonkers book, and it was very apparent to me reading the book, more so than it was watching the film adaptation. But it's a testament to the book, I would say, that it comes off as well as it does. By the end of the book, you're kind of, on its wavelength. You're kind of in the zone, so to speak, and you're like, you're invested. Even though the characters, again, I found kind of lacking the just the sheer zaniness of the story. It had all come together in such a way that I was more or less invested in it. Yeah, but it's a weird book. It really is. But I suppose the biggest reason why I would say that the film did the story better than the book did is because the film streamlined it in a major way. It cut out several subplots, including Ray's long lost twin brother and this old guy who sold him the farm that he works and lives on now, and who was allegedly a one-time pro ball player. And there's also some like scenes in here that are just totally cut for the film, and I think it really improved things majorly. But also, probably the biggest reason why the movie is better is because the movie is so much more emotional than this book. Again, the ending to the film, when Kevin Costner says, "Hey, Dad, you want to have a catch?" Like that scene brings a lot of grown ass men to tears. It really does, and it's really just a powerful scene. It's very touching, very stirring, but that is totally absent in this book. In fact, all the emotion of the film pretty much is just completely missing in this book. You do get mostly the baseball speech, the really like rousing speech that James Earl Jones gives in the film, again, about how baseball is the one constant and how people will come because it's money they have but peace they lack, right? That is mostly in here, but it does not hit as hard as it does in the movie. Again, that was a great scene in the movie, and it really just doesn't. It does not have the same emotional impact that the film has, and so for that reason, among others, I would say that the film is actually an improvement on this book. However, again, that is not at all to say that this book is bad. This book is a pretty good book, and it's a testament to its overall quality that it is able to get the reader to invest in something that is so really just batshit loony. But it's a good book. It is a good book. So to rate Shoeless Joe, I would give this book. I'd give it a B minus. I'd give it a B minus. It's a pretty good book, honestly. It's not as good as the film, and I think this is a rare instance, perhaps, of the film actually improving on its source material. But in its own right, the book is a fine book. It's not bad at all. It could have been better, I think, but such as it is a quality product in its own right, and I don't regret reading it. So yeah, it'll get a B minus from me. So Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella. Have you read this book? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, whether you have agreed or disagreed with anything I've said here today. Also, let me know if you've seen Field of Dreams, what you think of the movie, because that is kind of a modern classic movie, again, that has the potential to pluck at the heartstrings and bring, again, a lot of grown-ass men to tears, especially with that ending. So let me know down in the comments what you thought of the film as well. If you haven't read this book, I could recommend it. If you like baseball, this is going to be the book for you, because this book treats baseball, again, not just as some mere sport, but as a quasi-religious activity, something grandiose, something mythic in its proportions. And again, if you are a fan of the sport, this is going to be the book for you. If you're not, and you like just kind of, oddball, pun intended, I guess, stories that fuse a lot of disparate elements and do it ultimately pretty well. I could perhaps recommend this as well. This book is it's just such an odd book. It really is. But it comes off pretty well in the end. So I could recommend reading it. I don't think it's going to. I don't think it would sour anybody. I don't think it would be a sour reading experience for anybody. But anyway, as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.